Good morning, everyone. Every single time Justin Trudeau tries to change the channel on SNC-Lavalin, it blows up spectacularly in his face. From budgets to nothing to see here to nothing was wrong, no pressure was put on to, the pressure was legitimate because 9,000 jobs were at stake. And then the CEO of SNC-Lavalin says, and there's 9,000 jobs are at stake. Those people will get jobs, no problem. But I digress. The Conservatives triggered 30 hours of voting in the House, and all of them were confidence votes. That means that the Liberals needed to actually be at their seats to make sure the votes were voted on with their majority, right? They needed to maintain a majority. A confidence vote could potentially bring down the government. And so you can see here on Mr. Scheer's Twitter feed, he's got now an hour 21 corruption scandal cover up. So he's using the bully pulpit to bully Trudeau into coming clean on this, right? But what happened yesterday? Well, Michelle Rempel is going to tell us, and this is Michelle after she's been up for almost a full day, 24 hours. And the short version is essentially that they being the Liberal government, lost a confidence vote yesterday. But the Speaker is not letting that go through. So people are pretty upset about that. And this is just one of the stories that happened in the last 24 hours that I haven't even began to look at or whatever. This happened at about 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, 4:30 maybe. So here's Michelle Rempel to explain exactly what happened. As soon as my mouse works. There it is.
There. So let me tell you what just happened in the House of Commons. And I'm sorry, I look like a wreck right now. We've been up for 24 hours. But we're voting on matters of confidence, budgetary items. And the Liberals had started to get lazy. Their numbers were really low in the House of Commons. We all came into the House to vote. We were in our seats. We were ready to go. We were ready to vote. Liberals weren't there. And then all of a sudden they started pouring into the House of Commons because they knew they were going to lose. We brought this issue up with the Speaker of the House of Commons for about half an hour, and time after time, point of order after point of order, Conservative, NDP alike, we brought this up and we got shut down. What you are watching on television right now is the complete abrogation and failure of Canadian Parliament. The Speaker is supposed to be a non-partisan institution that considers the rules and procedure of the House of Commons first and foremost, because partisan stripe aside, policy differences aside, our democratic institutions have to allow for freedom of speech and principle in terms of discourse and voting. Here we have Liberals streaming into the House of Commons late on a vote of confidence and obfuscation from the Speaker. I have never seen anything like this. I have been in Parliament for years. And
I'll stop her there. But this is, I don't want to say unprecedented because I don't know. I haven't looked yet. I've just started looking at all of these things that are happening. But this is certainly improper, right? If the Speaker is supposed to be non-partisan, that means not leaning towards Liberal or Conservative. You're supposed to enforce the rules of the House. And if the House rules are you need to be in your seat when the vote is read in order to vote on it, and the House Speaker did not enforce those rules or allowed the Liberals to come in, or indeed had a vote and then had another vote, a second vote when people were back in place, that's not great. That's against the rules of our Parliament. That's against the rules of our government. That's improper. If there was a confidence vote lost, then the Governor General should be called and it should be dissolved and gone into an election. Now, I don't want an early election necessarily. It messes with things. But if we can get Justin Trudeau out, my goodness, let's do it. I mean, worst case scenario, I think in this situation, we get a Liberal minority, and then we can actually bring the government down when they continue to start messing with things, which is exactly what they will do because, they're terrible. So I went looking. Here's the live stream that Mr. Scheer had in his tweet streams that was covering all of the voting, right? 30 hours is a long time, but 30 hours on YouTube, I think I can find 30 hours of the Starship Enterprise noise uninterrupted. So 30 hours of this doesn't seem to be all that much. And I was going to scrub through and find that vote for you, but I can't because the live stream's not available. And I went to Mr. Scheer's YouTube page and all that other stuff, and I couldn't find a recording of this. So if anybody's got a recording of this or a recording of the vote, please do send it on. I'm interested in watching it, and I'm interested in showing all of you. Here is the other big story in the National Post, and I'm going to read, this is the wrong lead-in, sorry. Here's the Macleans article that sent yesterday morning's vote into a tizzy. So like I said, they spent 30 hours in the House of Commons voting. Imagine the smell. But Ms. Philpott, a former cabinet minister, now just a Liberal caucus member, and for how much longer, we're not sure, she did an interview with Macleans, and this is a very candid interview. It came out yesterday right after I got busy again, and I haven't had a chance to read it, or I didn't have a chance to read it yesterday until today, so here we go. Macleans reporting, Jane Philpott, quote, "There's much more to the story that needs to be told." In an exclusive interview with Paul Wells, the former Treasury Board president says, "We actually owe it to Canadians as politicians to ensure that they have the truth," and I would agree. This is Philpott's first interview since she resigned over Trudeau's handling of the SNC-Lavalin controversy. She believes, as she put it, that, quote, "There's much more to the story that needs to be told, but that it can't come out because, quote, there's an attempt to shut down the story," an attempt she attributed to the Prime Minister and his close advisors. But she is also keenly aware, because she has been hearing from Liberal colleagues, that, quote, "There are people who are afraid that they're not going to get elected because of what I did." And as she described that anger, the former minister said, quote, "My only way of living with myself on that is that this is not my fault. I did not start this." Now she is trying to figure out how to see it through. This transcript of our conversation has been edited only lately for clarity. Question: when you left cabinet, did you have a strategic goal in mind? What was the point of resigning? "I resigned because I could not maintain solidarity with cabinet on the specific issue of the management of the SNC-Lavalin issue. I felt that there was evidence of an attempt to politically interfere with the justice system in its work on the criminal trial that had been described by some as the most important and serious prosecution of corporate corruption in modern Canadian history." Question: have all the things that concerned you about the handling of that file come to light at the committee? Answer: no. There's much more to the story that should be told. Question: what sort of stuff? Answer: I believe the former Attorney General has further points to make. I believe that I have further issues of concern that I'm not free to share. There was a reference by Jerry Butts in his testimony that the fact that I spoke to the Prime Minister on January the 6th about SNC-Lavalin's desire to have a DPA, Deferred Prosecution Agreement. This was more than a month before this story became public, as I ordinarily would not have been allowed to share this information, but of course, it's already in the public record from the Justice Committee. I think Canadians might want to know why I would have raised with the Prime Minister a month before the public knew about it. Why would I have felt that there was a reason why former Minister Wilson-Raybould should not be shuffled? Question: in what form would you like to discuss all of this? Answer: my sense is that Canadians would like to know the whole story. I believe we actually owe it to Canadians as politicians to ensure that they have the truth. They need to have confidence in the very basic constitutional principle of the independence of the justice system. Question: all of this has been raised in the context of something called the Shawcross Doctrine. Part of the Shawcross Doctrine holds that if an Attorney General feels that she is the subject of an inappropriate pressure, she should resign immediately. Is that your understanding of the doctrine? And what do you say to people, including Jerry Butts and others, who asked why she didn't resign or didn't raise it at the time? I would not consider myself an expert on the Shawcross Doctrine, but I've heard people raise that concern. Here's what I would have to say about that. And of course, the former Attorney General is the person who can best speak for why she didn't resign at the time. I see it as her having her finger in the dike. She essentially single-handedly was upholding the independence of the justice system on this criminal trial. I supported, of course, by the fact that the Director of Public Prosecution was the first one who said they don't qualify for a DPA based on law that was put in place in our last budget bill. So that was where the decision was made. The former AG didn't want to override that, and she had her finger in the dike and said no repeatedly. She may have felt that if she were to resign, that would put the independence of the justice system at risk. Oh, interesting. Were she to resign, that would put the independence of the justice system at risk, and she's the finger in the dike, making sure that the DPA didn't get pushed through, so she didn't want to resign. So maybe this is the answer to the question up here. Why would I have felt that there was a reason why former Minister Wilson-Raybould should not be shuffled? I feel like she's maybe answering the same question. The other part is that's one answer for you. Another answer, to that is from the perspective of somebody who is under pressure and perhaps being harassed. It is incredibly hard, if you talk to people who are harassed in any capacity, to maintain relationships and to find the right time to be able to speak up about the fact that you're being treated in that way. So, I think if you look at examples of other types of bullying or harassment, it's not necessarily as easy as people might think to speak to those who are inflicting it upon you. Question: Mr. Butts said, essentially, come on, this doesn't rise to the level of harassment or bugging or even sustained engagement. It's 20 interactions over 4 months. It's 2 phone calls and 2 meetings per month. 2 phone calls and 2 meetings per month. Wow. A constitutional principle of the independence of the justice system is such that the Attorney General of our country should not be subjected to political interference in any way. Whereas whether there's one attempt to interfere or whether there are 20 attempts to interfere, that crosses ethical and constitutional lines. Question: in recent days, including on Monday, the Prime Minister and the government have announced a series of steps getting advice from Macleans, a change at the clerk level, and the Liberal majority on the committee has written that they have heard enough. How would you assess that series of steps as a response? When I decided to become a politician, I made a commitment to represent the people of my riding. People of my riding want to hear more. They do not feel that they have heard the whole story. And I believe my primary obligation in representing them is to ensure that they have confidence that nothing untoward took place and that they have understandably been concerned about why there's been an attempt to shut down this story. Question: now that there's an ethics commissioner investigation, Michael Wernick seemed to have a lot of confidence in the ethics commissioner. Do you think that can capture everything that needs capturing? Answer: my sense is that they will not have the appropriate tools to be able to get at all of this. Question: what's missing? Answer: if nothing wrong took place, then why don't we waive privilege on the whole issue and let those who have something to say on it speak their minds and share their stories? Question: I've heard it argued that yours and Jody Wilson-Raybould's parliamentary privilege trumps other privilege, and that you could simply get up in a series of SO31s, short statements before question period, and air this out, or speak to any bill or motion that is even peripherally connected, that you could stand in the House of Commons and you're protected. Answer: I would prefer to err on the side of caution in terms of the very serious oaths I made when I became a cabinet minister to respect confidentiality, and every supposed legal expert in the country weighing in, saying I can assume that the privilege has been waived, does not necessarily give me confidence clearly enough that I'm prepared to speak. In terms of speaking in the House and using parliamentary privilege as a coverage, it is technically possible. It's easier said than done. Even SO31s are sometimes sought after spots, and I don't think that it's something that you're going to be able to explain in a few minutes. We got 4 hours of testimony from former AG, and I think there's still a substantial amount of her story that's not out there. I doubt that I would get 4 hours of time, or she would, or others would, to be able to explain the story in the House of Commons. I scroll down a little bit. Do you have leadership aspirations? No, is the answer. Question: the reason I ask is because the Liberal Party has historically been fairly kind to people who establish a clear divergence from the leader and then later sought to rally fellow Liberals around them in the leadership bid. That's not the plan? Answer: there's nothing in the decisions that I've made in the last few weeks that is any kind of power play. I ran to be a good member of Parliament. I did not ever run to be in cabinet. I was obviously thrilled to have the privilege of being in cabinet. I saw it as an amazing opportunity to be able to do good things for the country and try to support people that might otherwise not have someone at the cabinet table advocating on their behalf. I'm happy to be a good member of Parliament. I don't think my time in federal politics is done. I know there are people that are putting out rumors that the reason I quit is because I want to run for the Ontario Liberal Party's provincial leadership. That is not true. Question: the Finance Minister, Bill Morneau, Will Ferrell lookalike, said, and McCain heiress husband, said that your resignation from cabinet was an expression of personal friendship with Jody Wilson-Raybould. What do you make of that? Answer: I think that's an insult. Question: how so? Answer: I don't make decisions on any policy, and definitely not on a matter of principle based on friendship. I made the very difficult decision to step down because my conscience demanded it. Question: what kind of reception are you getting within the Liberal caucus these days? Answer: mixed. I like to think that I have pretty good relationships and I have extraordinary respect for my colleagues and worked hard to build relationships, to listen, to be fair, to be a fair colleague, even if we disagree on issues. This has hurt people, and I feel really sad about that. That was the hardest thing about doing this. It's the first time in my life that I've made a decision that would directly impact people that I really care about. And I'm really sorry that I had to do it, because there are people who are afraid they're not going to get elected because of what I did. My only way of living with myself on that is that it is not my fault. I did not start this. And a very wise person said two things to me that helped me over that. This is someone who has been around politics for a long time. They said that politics in general, and perhaps liberals in particular, make mistakes when they assume that the best interests of Canadians and their own future political success are synonymous. I scroll down to the conclusion. The only other thing I would say is, and one of my hesitations in talking to you, was that I do, in a sense, have two parallel messages. One is that I'm not happy with how SNC-Lavalin issue has been dealt with, and I'm not prepared to support how it's being managed. But at the same time, I really strongly support the Liberal Party, and I believe that we have the best overall policy suite for the good of Canadians. So I was really hesitant to talk to you because it will be perceived by my colleagues as some kind of attack. I have not yet figured out how I can reconcile the fact that it is wrong for me to stay silent on this, but somehow I have to hope that people, my colleagues in particular, can believe what is probably hard for them to believe, that I'm not trying to damage our party or our government. Interesting. And so this was released yesterday morning, again during those voting marathons, and it sent shockwaves through the House, etc. And well, I think, as I've said, stay tuned. There's still more to come on this. Jody Wilson-Raybould has remained silent, and she may remain silent if they don't push a DPA through for SNC-Lavalin, but she may not. Who knows? I am very interested to see what happens today. And on the vote issue on Measure 126, I believe, and with Ms. Philpott and this story spawned a lot of other stories, and this was the one I was originally going to talk about, but it doesn't really matter all that much. But the point is, these stories are all about the same thing, and the same thing is liberals and the Liberal parties shaking apart. You know, they may believe they have the best policy, but the put in practice, Canada's in a really, really big trouble. And a lot of that is Justin Trudeau's fault. So, interesting to see. I'm wondering what's going to happen next in the twisting, turning world of Canadian politics. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out thepeoplespartyofcanada.ca and have a wonderful day.